Hi, thanks for purchasing this DVD from Championship Productions. My name is Jeff Steinberg. I'm the head football coach at Santiago High School in Corona, California. And today's topic is going to be Friday Night Lights, preparation and planning. And this has to do with all the things other than the X's and O's for a spread offense to prepare your team for success on Friday nights. We're going to be looking at practice planning, game planning, and the way that you and your staff will work the week, how you would divide up the work to be done during the week, and how you would practice the different components that need to be done so that you can be successful on a Friday night. It all starts with how you define success, and for us, we believe that success is a byproduct of doing the right thing. And as a staff, we're going to work hard, we're going to work smart, and we're going to work with great intensity, and we would expect the same from our players. So that'll be one thing that will be at the forefront as we get ready for a Friday night. We will try as much as possible to keep the focus on us. Sure, we're going to watch game film, we're going to scout the opponent tendencies, but we really think that at the top of that, we've got to focus on us so that we can get better at what we do, because otherwise it won't really matter what our opponents are doing. The biggest element in our program is time. It's the one factor or the one common element that everybody shares. If we take a look at the high school level, everybody has roughly about 2 to 2.5 hours of practice time each day. Coaches have lives, coaches have families, so we are all limited on the amount of time that we have. Our philosophy is that we are going to do things more efficiently than any other program and squeeze as much as we can into that given period of time. So if we take a look at our spread offense and our no-huddle offense, our practice tempo is going to be great. We're going to be very demanding of all the kids at practice, not just our ones, not just our best players. We're going to be just as demanding as a first-year player who's a sophomore as a player who's a four-year senior. And we're going to attempt to outwork our opponents in the time that we have. We have a clock in our locker room that tells us how much time we have from this point till our first game, and we constantly talk to the players about the time that we have, about being as efficient as we can with the given time. The other thing that we use is we use a segment timer at practice, and that constantly displays how much time we have at practice and how much time's gone. So the players know that we're always on the clock. We don't take one more rep. We're going to just be as efficient as we can throughout our practice. As a staff, it really starts out for us with having a yearly plan, and we want to be as organized as we can so that we can maximize all our opportunities. Everybody has opportunities. It's really just a matter of maximizing them. It's not a case of, well, I didn't have the same opportunities. Yeah, we all have the same opportunities. We all have 12 months in a year, 7 days in a week, 24 hours in a day, and we want to maximize that amount of time. And in order to do that, we want to be as efficient as possible. So when we're on December break, we'll usually start planning out our year as much as possible, and it generally breaks down so that our players know what we're doing on any given day, and especially what we're doing in the different months. So if we take a look at January, in regards to just leading up and getting ready for our Friday nights, in January, there's no official workouts for the quarterbacks or receivers. If they're throwing, they're all on their own. The only thing that we're doing at that point in January is we're a weightlifting team. We are building better athletes in the weight room, and we've got even a lifting program that we do that's going to develop our athleticism, and that we think does a really good job of developing that tempo and catering or lending itself to us being a no-huddle, hurry-up offense. And we feel that we've got really good program that develops our not only our core strength and our power, but it's very functional as well, and develops the full functional athlete in the weight room. So January, no official workouts. We certainly aren't practicing. We're not getting out with a football. The only thing that we're doing is we're lifting, and we're reintroducing our players to the weight room. Beginning in February, we're going to have our quarterback workouts and quarterback meetings once per week. So one time per week we will meet, and outside of school hours we will have a quarterback meeting that will be anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and we will start looking at and breaking things down. Now, we don't look at game film at that time. When we start out in February with the quarterbacks, we're going to just go at it and coach them as if they've never played the position before. So we're going to hammer on character, leadership, quarterback traits, what's important about playing the position, what we're looking for, and then from there we're going to teach them how to identify defenses, how to read coverages, look at what we're doing on offense, and the goal is by the time we go to spring football, they've got an outstanding education on what the whole position entails. So it's not just about I've got the best arm. In most cases, that's probably something that's lower on our list. We want a kid that's got a good head on his shoulders, and in order to work with those players, we have to start them out early. We can't start picking things up in the summer already. It's too late. In March, we will incorporate our quarterbacks and our wide receivers in the meetings, and now we will start going 2 days per week. And for us, we will have one off day and one day where we come together before practice, because in March we're going to start practicing once a week. So with the quarterback and wide receiver meetings 2 days per week, we feel that the quarterbacks have had a little bit of a head start from the wide receivers. We've brought them in to talk to them about the leadership and things that go along with the position, and now we start bringing the wide receivers up to speed, teaching them coverages and how to read coverages and fronts and different things that would be involved with being a great receiver. In April, we continue with our quarterback meetings 2 times per week. We have our team practices 1 time per week, and now we're going to start hosting 7-on-7 and trench wars. We have 2 dates in April where we will invite one other team, and it's very informal. We're not keeping score. There's a lot of teaching going on, working on things, repping our stuff out. We've had an opportunity to practice in March and in April, and now we start applying some of our stuff versus different coverages that we would see. In May, we will continue with our quarterback meetings 2 times per week. It's now spring football in the month of May, and in the month of May, we like to have our spring ball Monday through Thursday for the whole month of May. Players that are involved in other sports, we don't touch them. We do have some players that are involved in other sports where the coaches don't mind them coming after practice and working out with us, but we let them know that your other sport takes precedent. If your coach says no, you're not coming out for spring football. So in the case of quarterbacks, we've had a quarterback that's been tied up in spring ball. I looked at that as an opportunity to work with some of our younger guys that aren't 2-sport athletes, and it gives me an opportunity to really work on them where maybe I couldn't if our number 1 quarterback was out. Obviously, the best case scenario is if your guys are there, but if you're going to encourage other sports, you can't contradict yourself and have your players going out for other sports and then telling them that they also need to be at football and going against maybe some of the wishes of other coaches. So we're going to work with our players as much as possible, and we feel that spring football really gives us an opportunity, not only for our returning players, but for any new players that played freshmen, to give them a real feel of what it's like to go through football during the course of the week and have to tie in academics as well. And as a coach, I can evaluate maybe some of newer players who've come out that haven't played football before, that want to play football. How do they do during the week with the rigors of not only football practice and the demands of football and weights, but also taking care of their academics first. In May, we'll also host 7-on-7 again several times, and trench wars. We like to not only invite people with their skill players, but we want them bringing their linemen so that our linemen can do some lineman competition and then finish with one-on-ones. Some of the other stuff that we've even done in this last year is we've gone together with some coaching friends and their teams where we've invited their whole team over and we've done a modified 11-on-11 pass scrimmages. Keep it safe. There's definitely nothing live, and I think that it's something that could be done and works out well if you're doing it with people that you trust. You've really got to monitor the players because there's that competitive aspect where players want to get after it and they want to compete, but you got to make sure that you're not live and you're certainly not taking anybody down and not getting to the quarterback. In June, as we're getting out of school for the end of the school year, we give them the first 3 weeks where we have our so-called dead period. You have to have a consecutive 3-week period in the state of California where coaches aren't bringing their players on the field and all you can do is strength training. So we find that after going a month of spring football and having some of our off-season practices in March and April, it's now a good time to take a little bit of a break. We call it our live period, and we bring the players in the morning for the players that are in town. They come in the morning, Monday through Thursday, get their weights done, and then they've got the rest of the day to do whatever they want. I've also found that that's a good time and a good way to work it so that coaches could be at home with their families later on in the afternoon rather than bringing them in for the whole summer late in the afternoon, and people get beat. That this way gives people a chance to not only get their weights done, but feel they have a life. Players can go to the beach and do whatever they'd like once we're done. And we work them pretty hard, get our work done, and get out of there. In July, we pick football back up, and we have what we call quarterback school 4 days a week. And that's where the quarterbacks come in early, and we continue with our meetings. We really start looking in detail at the plays and what we're accomplishing. And that's going back. We've already installed everything. It's a reinstall for our quarterbacks. And then we start looking at opponents that we're playing, and maybe start looking at some of our early in the year games so that they get a feel of what they're going to see early on. We watch 7-on-7 tape with them, and we watch practice video every day with them as well. The team comes in for their workouts, and we go 4 days a week, but we're certainly not going football 4 days a week. We feel that there's a little bit of a reward in there during the week. On Monday, we come in and lift as a team and then do a modified practice. On Tuesday, all we do is lift and condition. And then on Wednesday, we lift, and then we have invite where we host 4-way 7-on-7 and line workouts or trench workouts. And then on Thursday, it's very similar to Monday, where we go lift and workout. So we go Monday through Thursday. Not every day is a practice. As a matter of fact, there's only 2 days during that week where it's just us practicing. There's a day that's a reward day where we compete a little bit against some other teams, and then there's a day where we lift them and let them get out and have a life. We don't do any 2-day tournaments in the summer. So we like going to some of the 7-on-7 tournaments. We do 2 of them in the summer. We'll go to 7-on-7 tournaments that are 1 day only, where we can compete and have some fun, build a little bit of team chemistry. We also do the same thing with our linemen, where they'll go to 2 line competitions during the month of July. In August, we start our fall practices early in August, and then once we start in the fall, we're full go till the season ends. So it's rigorous, but we make sure that we build in some breaks and make sure that obviously that we're having fun along the way as we're preparing them for Friday Night Lights. Two very important positions in our offense of running the spread, hurry up, no huddle, or spread and shred Sharks offense are the quarterback and the wide receiver position. And we have certain things that we're looking for when we ID them so that we can make sure that we are playing at the top of the performance pyramid on Friday night. So let's look at the quarterback selection first. Certain things that we look for. Number one, we want competitors. We want guys that have not only a burning desire to win, but they definitely hate to lose. And in some cases, you've heard the saying that I hate losing more than I love winning. And that's kind of what we're looking for in our quarterbacks, that whether it's a game of tiddlywinks, checkers, or sprints or weight room, we want them competing in everything that they do and just have that burning desire to not only compete with others, but obviously competition in themselves and just being the best. And at practice, I expect that our quarterbacks are going to compete as a group. Whether you're the starting varsity quarterback, you're going to compete to keep yourself on a high level and be the leader of the group of the quarterbacks with the other guys. The second one is grades. Grades are very important. They are definitely something that create a lot of heartache for coaches when any player is having grade problems, but especially quarterback. You need your quarterback to be making good decisions in the classroom and in the community. If he's going to be a leader, and it's got to be grades at the forefront. And if we want them to make good decisions on the field, I think they go hand in hand with making good decisions in the classroom. If I look back at some of our best years, they've been with some of not only our most gifted quarterbacks, but definitely athletes that have had high character and an outstanding work ethic. And we want them to make really good decisions when they're with their friends if they're going to be the leaders of the program. They're going to spend more time away from us than they will with us, so we want to be able to trust them that they're going to be the eyes and the ears of the program and keep things safe. And we use a term with the players, protect the program. We expect them to be great ambassadors of the program when they're stepping outside our football facilities. And then with our decision making on quarterback and the selection is, I will make the final decision if need be at all levels of the program. So I will obviously make the final decision on who our starting varsity quarterback is, but also our JV, and I'm definitely going to make the final decision on our freshman quarterback if I need to. And in most cases, We've trusted our decision of our staffs at the lower levels. But if I need to intervene, they understand that I'm gonna be calling the shots on who's going to play quarterback. I tell them that in many cases they'll decide who's starting, and I'll just decide who won't. And so quarterback's the one position in our program that it's not open tryouts. We do let players that if they want to try another position during the off season, we always let them go where their passions are. We tell a player, for instance, if you've been a defensive back and your passion is to play receiver, you're going to come out during the off season would be a time to pick it up, discuss it with your position coach and the head coach, and we will give you a open invitation to try any position you want. And then, of course, when it's crunch time, if we think that it's not the position for you, we're going to put you at the position where we think you'll most help the team. But the quarterback position will be the one spot in the entire program where there's no switching and you can't come out. That's got to be something that's identified at a pretty early age in our program. So I've already spoke about some of these, but here's our quarterback must list. Here's what you got to be able to bring to the table as a quarterback in our offense. Number one, as I mentioned, you've got to have a burning desire to lead and be competitive. You've got to have those competitive qualities. Number two, you need great footwork in the pocket. Does that mean that you need to be an outstanding athlete? Well, it's always, I think, a bonus when you have a quarterback who's an outstanding athlete. But in the pocket, you've got to be able to move in that confined space and get out of trouble. And then thirdly, you've got to be able to recognize the fronts that you're going to see, whether it's an odd stack, even or an even stack. And then what goes with that, with the fronts, is the coverages are always tied into that, whether it's a one safety family or a two safety family coverage that you're going to see. And then lastly, you've got to understand the difference between man and zone and when they're blitzing and when they're not, so that you're making good decisions with the football. Let's now look at the wide receiver selection in our offense that we're running. Well, number one, we want athletes that play very well in space. Our philosophy is that we're just going to get the ball out to our players in space. And the quick game to us and bubble screens, those are really extended handoffs. And they're on the perimeter, and we want our athletes that are playing on the perimeter to have an edge about them, to be able to have quickness. Not everybody's going to run a 4.5 or even a 4.6 at the high school level, but if we can have a 4.8 athlete that can do some really good things in space because of his foot quickness, we're fine with that. But they understand that you've got to be able to do some things with the football and make guys miss in those one-on-one close quarters. The second thing is we take a look at our outside receivers and our inside receivers. We don't flop our outside receivers with the exception of one formation. So if you're the left wide receiver, you're called X, the right wide receiver is called Z. They don't switch. We like one of them to be a deep threat and one of them to be a possession. If you can do both, it's a bonus. But if we had one of each, we would take our wide receiver that was a deep threat and we would put him on our left side, and we would take our wide receiver that was a possession guy and we would put him on our right side. The next thing we look at is our two slots, who we call S and Y. Y is like a converted tight end or a flex tight end. If we had to take a look at the two, who was a better blocker, he would play Y. And then if we take a look at the S position, he's more of a converted tailback, maybe somebody who can play tailback but has outstanding hands. And again, players understand that every year positions are open, that there's no starters until the pads come on. So when somebody is returning, they're seen as a returning player, and everybody has a chance to compete for starting spots during the off season. For our wide receivers, we have what's called a must list. It's 4 things that they've got to be able to do. The first thing is we understand that all of them, if you're a starting receiver, you've got to be able to catch the ball. So that's kind of something that we don't even list. We say all things being equal, you're all going to have great hands if you're playing wide receiver. You're probably not going to play the position anyway. So we think the one thing that's going to separate guys that start versus maybe guys that don't, the one separator is your stock blocking skills and blocking in space. And the other thing that we find that creates an edge when they start to hear that, they have more of a defensive player mentality where they're looking to make some cleanup shots and have a toughness or an edge to them out on the perimeter. The other thing is it creates some unselfish play if they understand that in a game, if you catch 6 footballs in a game at the high school level, that's a pretty good game, because over a 10-game season, that would be 60 plays or 60 receptions going into the playoffs. You're going to have more of an opportunity to make an impact in the stock blocking that you do for your teammates. So we want them to all be able to be great stock blockers. The second thing is they have to understand, and is a must, they have to be able to run full speed patterns and give the illusion that they are always blowing the top off. Everything starts out like they are a vertical threat. The third one is that receivers, just like quarterbacks, they have to understand the difference between man and zone. I heard Jerry Rice early in his career was told by Bill Walsh that in zone you want to settle down. If you keep running across the field in zone, you're going to look at getting a knockout or a headache. And then in man, you want to continue running your routes and run away from guys. So players have to understand the difference between man and zone. And then lastly is the fourth one being, and very important, is you have to have great releases anytime corners or outside linebackers come up and want to jam you. And if all you are is an effective zone route runner, you're not going to be a great football player, because there's going to come a time where defense is going to come up, get in your face, and play man on you. So you're going to have just terrific releases so that you can do some things to get open. In the summer, I had mentioned that we do QB school with our quarterbacks. It's a really simple thing. We do daily drills with them during QB school, and so we would do anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes of on-the-field drills with the quarterbacks. Sometimes we would incorporate wide receivers, and for some of our players, they do go to an off-season program where we do have quarterback school. Some of them train with us here. Some of them go to other coaches. But these are things that we do in the summer. The other one is we are always meeting in the classroom, because we want to do the mental as much as we do the physical. Mental is to the physical is probably 3 times more important anyways. We find that you can be more cerebral and probably be more of an impact player than if you're just a physical, or you just have the physical tools at quarterback. So we look at video, we do PowerPoint presentations, and we have chalkboard software where we can simulate some helmet cam stuff and looking at coverages. And then lastly, we have an online program where the players can get online at home, and we can give them tests and they can review some practice video and 7-on-7 video. And so that's our quarterback school. Now I'd like to take a look at our game week preparation and how we get our offense and our team ready for Friday Night Lights. And we'll take a look right from Saturday all the way through the game. And it starts with Saturday morning. We don't get together as a staff on Saturdays now. There was a time where we did meet on Saturdays, and we feel that just after the game, it's really important for our coaches to get a little bit of a break and be alone and maybe spend a little bit of time with their families, do some chores around the house, help out with the kids at home, and just do what they need to do and maybe recharge the batteries quickly so that we can get going for the next week. So we do have some things that I ask our coaches to do on their own while they're at home on Saturdays, and we're fortunate that a lot of people now have online video systems, and we have a great system that we use. A lot of people now at the college and even the pro level and definitely the high school level are using across the country. So the very first thing that I expect our coaches to do is review and evaluate the game from Friday night, grade out your players, and take a look at seeing how your entire position group played, and come up with some comments and points of emphasis that we're going to need to work on for the next week, but also share those with your players over the internet. As I mentioned, the coaches will take a look at that and do their review and then put it up for their position groups to watch online. And I always tell them that by noon on Saturday, let's have everything loaded for our players from the previous game. So Saturdays is an opportunity for the players to do what they need to do, nurse any injuries that they have. If they're working or going out of town with their families, they can get stuff done, be a kid and have some fun, but also spend some time on their own watching some video and learning and making the corrections. So the video is up by noon on Saturday for everybody to see. I even have coaches, most of the coaches get home on Friday night. You're all wound up from Friday night's game. You can't quite go to sleep, and many of our coaches are spending some time Friday night starting to watch the video. And we won't share as much information after the game, win or lose, with the players, because it's pretty emotional, and we want to make sure that we take a look at the video. So if anything, on Friday we'll make some general comments, talk about some outstanding things that we saw, and then try to finish with a positive as much as possible. Win or lose, we want to keep things as positive as possible, and hopefully your players are winning more than they're losing, and get them out of there and let them be kids for the weekend. It's our players' day off, and our players understand that if they need treatment, there's a clinic that we're hooked up with that the players can go in on the weekend and get evaluated for any injuries they have. And they also know that the quicker you go in and get treatment and the more productive you are with getting your injuries treated, the quicker you are to returning. And over the course of a season, your body will break down, and things do take their toll on your body over the course of a season. So a lot of it is we want to be preventative as much as possible when we talk about ice baths to the players, using ice cups, rub downs, and things like that, and a little bit on Saturdays if they want to get into a sauna or a whirlpool. But more than anything, we found that ice is the best remedy for every injury. As a staff, we'll share, and I'll get the information from our athletic trainer as extent of any injuries that we had. I'm usually talking to our athletic trainer right after Friday's game, but if need be, we'll talk a little bit, and she'll get information back from the clinic as to who came in to see them and what the prognosis is. And we tell the players, don't wait till Monday to come in and get treatment. If you're going to be a serious athlete, let's get that done on Saturdays while you're on your own. We will preview on our own upcoming opponents. So as we get done with one opponent, coaches will have some time where we've got loaded in as many videos as we can of our last opponent. And what we'll do is we will break down their most recent three. And as an offense, I may not be able to break down many because I have to find some common offenses that are going against our opponent. So for instance, if we're going to go against an opponent and last week they saw a wing T team, the week before they saw a West Coast offense, and then the week before they saw a double wing team, I may have to go deeper and look back, even the case of going back a year to see what they were doing. But in a lot of cases, you're going to find several teams that they've seen during the course of the season that have been spread offenses with everybody that's doing it. It's become the rage and very popular. So as I sit down as a coach and as an offensive coordinator, I'm going to look at what are the base fronts they're doing, what are their base coverages, and what appears to be their defensive philosophy. Are they an even front team or an odd front team? Do they like to blitz? Are they a bend but don't break defense? And I'm going to look and come up with their basic philosophy real quick as I'm watching film, and then share that with our staff. And as I'm watching film, I expect that our other offensive coaches are watching film, and we'll either text or talk briefly about what we're seeing over the course of Saturday. We're trying to prepare as much as we can so that when we do get together as a staff on Sunday, we've done a lot of the legwork. And that was Saturday morning. So now as we get into Saturday afternoon, there's some more responsibilities and duties that our coaches would have. I know it seems like a lot, but really the focus of Saturday morning is getting the previous game, our last game that we just finished up on Friday. Let's get the coaching points and corrections out so that players can start reviewing them and that you have an idea of maybe what your points of emphasis need to be for the next week. And then as we get into the afternoon, just if you can get online, watch some video. But by the end of the day, I'd like you to get on and have some stuff done. So for me, that's I want to study our opponent tapes. I want to prepare our offensive scouting report, which is all online. We don't have any paper and pencil or any printed reports for the players. It's all able that they can review online or on their smartphone or iPads. Those are all loaded on our software. They're all loaded, but we don't share them with the players until Sunday. They'll be shared with the coaches, and they'll all be prepped. And then on Sunday, we can share them. I want to assess the characteristics of the defense that we're going to see, and I want to prepare all the playlists that I'm going to share with my players online. They're not going to see them, but I want them all prepared. So we don't show our players entire games. I think that you waste time if our players have to watch the other team's offense and special teams. If you're an offensive player and you're not playing any defense, I don't need to show you the entire game. I want to show you something that would demonstrate the type of defense that you're going to see. Again, what's their philosophy? What are their characteristics? What are their tendencies? Once the players can see that, it's really on me as a coach to get a full game feel to see what their tendencies are. The players certainly don't need to do that, and I would recommend spending a little more time watching yourself and reviewing and making corrections on your own team than I would with your players watching the other team. I think it's really important as a coach to watch the other team, but as a player, I think we want to pick our spots with them, with our players. Our coaches will prepare their scripts, scout cards, which has the fronts, the coverages, the blitzes, so that they're ready to go. We want to have our inside run script, our 7-on-7 script, and our 11-on-11 scripts done as well. I'm going to assess what our practice needs are in the afternoon for the week by talking to our coordinators and our position coaches, and I'm going to begin working the game plan in the afternoon. What do I think the things are going to be that are going to help us be successful? So I'm going to start highlighting formations, personnel groupings, and plays as I'm watching film on them. And then one of our coaches will start preparing our locker room boards. And our locker room boards are an area in the locker room where we have the things that would be helpful to our players to show them the team that we're going against. So the locker room board will have a roster, some sort of depth chart, statistics that will show the players. These are the guys that you're going to be seeing, and these are the things that you need to focus on, and here's what they're focusing on, or here's the players that are getting the football. And give our players an idea so that when they come in Monday morning, they can see, okay, here's the guys that we're going to see, and they aren't going in blind. We want to give them as much as we can by visually appealing to their senses. Sunday, I'll usually find some time to do a little bit of further individual film study. I'm going to study their system and the personnel that they have, see if I can find some weak links. So I think that it's really important that not only do you want to attack systems with schemes on Friday, but we want to attack weaknesses with mismatches, getting my best players the ball maybe against somebody who's a weak link in their defense, or also finding what are the weak spots in what they're doing scheme-wise. We will meet later in the day as a staff where we all come in after dinner. By that time, all of our work's been done. We will do some further sharing and find out what other guys saw when they're watching film, and just finish up our scouting reports with the coordinators. By that time after dinner, we will send out our scouting reports online. So Sunday night, our players get a feel of what they're going to be seeing on the upcoming Friday. The old school was our team would come in Monday at lunch, and Monday at lunch I'd give them something on paper printed out for a scouting report. Now they've got a really good visual of what they're going to see before Monday even hits, so that motivation factor comes into play, and they're already motivated when they come in on Monday. Not only have they seen what they need to correct by watching their own game, but they've got a little bit of a piece of what they're going to see from our opponents, and I'll decide in terms of what plays they need to see and what they don't. We will discuss as a staff our practice plans for the week, so we don't practice plan before we got on the field. We don't wing it. Every detail and every moment of practice is planned. Everything's scripted. We will even detail what's live, what's thud, what's walkthrough, when we're going ones versus ones, and when we're going versus our scouts. And as a staff, we'll discuss the theme for the week, which is really easy because we use Wooden's Pyramid of Success during the season. So we pick a theme based on his Pyramid of Success that we're going to focus on during the week. We'll talk about it throughout the week. It'll be part of what we do. It'll be a good focus on what we're trying to accomplish during the week. And then Friday's really a chance to evaluate that theme. And we'll bring in, maybe at some points, have some of our other coaches talk about the theme, show them motivating video clips, and even bring in guest speakers. And then lastly on Sunday, we'll discuss as a staff, what's it going to take to win? We really feel that we should always win in the special teams department, and then we only have to outplay them in one of the others. So if we take a look at, defensively, we may feel that, okay, defensively, this is going to be a really tough week. We're going to have to play hard just to hold them. Well, we know that we're going to outplay them on special teams, and now we're going to look at something that we're going to do on offense to be an equalizing factor. When we talk about what it's going to take to win, the other thing that we look at is we look at, because we're process oriented, we look at our game goals. So we talk about offensive game goals, defensive game goals, and special teams game goals. And they don't change week in and week out. These are boards that are in the locker room that are posted and the players can see them. They're things that are easily identifiable. They're very objective. They're not subjective. And they deal with yards. They deal with turnovers, takeaways, net yards and punting, and different things that would be very important statistically in the game of football. And we talk to the players all week about them, and I'll give you an example. We feel that if we don't turn the ball over and we get 3 takeaways, that right there is going to be something that's going to translate into a win. So every week, one of our offensive goals is we want 100% ball security, no turnovers whatsoever. And we try to state it in the positive as much as possible, rather than saying don't turn the ball over, which is a negative connotation. We'll talk about we want to have 100% ball security. And so that really applies to everybody on offense. And then on defense, we talk about every game we want to try to get 3 takeaways. We want to try to strip the ball, intercept it, scoop and score, do whatever we can. So that would be an example of an offensive and a defensive goal that we have. On Monday, our theme for Mondays is Tone Setter Mondays. We believe that it sets the tone for the rest of the week. We don't need to bring the players in for lunch meetings. They've already seen the film on Sunday in terms of what they're gonna get with a scouting report. So on Mondays, we do bring the quarterbacks in for film at lunch, and it's a brief meeting in terms of anything we have to install for the week, things that we're looking for, talk about a little bit about our preliminary game plan. Our players, when they come into the locker room, they fill out, it's on a little 3x5 index card, and all they are is their commitment cards for the week. It's 3 things that they're going to be committed to, 3 of their own personal goals for the week. And again, no chest thumping, they're things that we can measure. We do strength training before we hit the field, so we have an athletic PE period. During that period, we do our strength training. And then before we go out on practice, we will watch film. And when we watch the film, we're just looking at their base D, what's their base front, their base coverages, maybe some personnel, and then we look at some of their rundown tendencies. After practice, if coaches want to get in with their position groups and watch film, they'll do it. Otherwise, they'll share some video on our online system with them. Sometimes the players will have home film study if necessary, and we sometimes give that as an option. Again, we're going to watch probably more film of us and make corrections in terms of what we have to do than watching our opponent with our players. And then lastly, before we leave as a staff, we're just going to review and discuss Tuesday's plan and needs. Remember, we've done all of our practice planning on the weekend, so we may have to tweak something here and there and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we want to emphasize in Tuesday's practice. Now we're on to Tuesday, and our theme for Tuesday is Takeaway Tuesday. So offense, it's all about ball security, and defense, it's all about getting the ball out and trying to create takeaways. So there's a little bit of a competitive nature going on while we're getting ready on Tuesdays. As I mentioned, every day we have a theme. We will do some film review of practice from the previous day before we go out. Usually Tuesdays for us is our night practice. So we're going to watch a little bit of practice from the previous day, or we're going to look at some of their pass down tendencies. We'll discuss our preliminary game plan with our team in terms of what we're going to try to accomplish on Friday night offensively. And then if we have some time, we'll watch some post-practice film. Sometimes it'll involve watching our opponents, and other times it'll be just watching some of the stuff that we were doing at practice that we taped. If we don't watch practice with our players, our coaches are definitely going online before they get to bed to review our practice film. And then lastly, before we leave, again, we're going to just review and discuss our practice plan for Wednesday. Wednesday may be considered hump day for a lot of people, but for us that is Competition Wednesday. It's our game simulation day. It's our one day where we're actually doing a lot of stuff live in limited aspects during practice. We don't do a lot of live. We pick our spots. We'll do a little bit on Tuesday and definitely a little more on Wednesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday for us are our days where we're going to get in full pads. Wednesday, as I mentioned, is game simulation. We're going to do our strength training during our PE class and then watch some film before we get out on the field. We're going to do a lot of game simulation. So we're going to work the hashes down and distance. We're going to work our fire alarm series. Our fire alarm series is a short yardage series that we do on offense. We're going to work a little bit of red zone. We're going to work backed up. And then we're going to work a little bit of Mayday if we can in shark ball. We're always going to work some aspects of those over the course of the week. And then after practice, we're going to watch a little bit of film with our players before they go. And then, of course, before the coaches go, again, we're going to review and take a look at our practice plan, make sure we're all on the same page before we come out on Thursday. Thursday is our last practice of the week. It's helmets and shoulder pads. We call it Perfect Thursday. We don't call anything walkthroughs. We don't do any walkthroughs in our programs at all. It doesn't really work or tie in well with what our tempo is in our program. So one of the things that we do is we go at 6 a.m. on Thursday and we have a 1-hour practice from when we start the clock to when we finish and get off the field. And it's fast, it's furious, we get a lot accomplished, and we want to be as perfect as possible during Thursday so that we're locked in and the kids understand what the game plan is. The very first thing that we're going to do is, in the way that we practice, is we're reviewing the game plan on offense and defense and special teams. We will review and practice our opening script that we're going to do on Friday. We're going to look at our special plays and review them. We're going to do our situations and sideline procedures as we practice. And then if we use them, or if you use them, that's a time to, before you go home, print up your risk cards, your game plan sheets, and your press box sheets, so that by the time you leave on Thursday, you can go check out the lower level games, have a good meal with your family, and get a good night's sleep. One of the things that's always was my pet peeve is all those things that need to be done on Friday of the day of the game, where you come in and you're going, oh, I've got to recharge the headsets, I've got to laminate my game plans, I've got to do my press box sheets, I've got to do this, I've got to get my extra jerseys, my equipment bag. Try to get as much as possible done early in the week, and then try to make sure that other coaches are sharing those responsibilities as the week goes on, so that you're not stuck as the head coach to do all of them. And we try to get them and divvy them up as much as possible, and make sure that everything's done by the time we leave the office on Thursday. Our theme for Friday is payday. This is the end of the week. This is the reward. It's test time for your players. This is the one day where you play a game and you're going to be tested on Friday night, and one half of the stadium is right behind you, hoping you ace the test, and the other half, being your opponents, is hoping that you fail. So we want to make sure as coaches that we've got our teams prepared so that they can have an enjoyable and real fun Friday night. It's another day for us to practice, and what I mean by that is we have 5 opportunities to practice. 4 of them are physical and mental, and that fifth one, being Friday, all it is mental. And in our football class at the end of the day, what we'll do is we'll review all our special teams and our 2-point plays. We'll review our substitutions, situations, and sideline procedures. We'll review our game plan on the field. We'll review our opening script. We'll review our special plays. We'll have our team meal after all of that's done. And we will give out our weekly awards. So for us, we have our Practice Player of the Week award, and we also give out an honorary team captain award, somebody who's going to go to the coin toss and be an honorary captain for that day. After all that's done, as the players are getting ready for the game, we'll have a staff meeting to review the coin toss, special situations, weather, 4th down, and other things. And then once that's done, we will have one final meeting with our players in our position groups, so that we are just reviewing things and keeping things as light as possible. But we're going to review as the week goes on. Some people may think that it's overkill. I found that really when the players hit the field, they've got an outstanding idea of what our game plan is all about, and they've been in a great position where they can do a great job of executing the game plan. And during the week, we want to put as much pressure on the players so that when our Friday games hits, that they're well versed in what they're going to see, and that they feel that they've seen all the situations, and it's like clockwork when they hit the field on Friday, and they're just reacting and one step ahead of the curve. Some advice that I would give with preparing your team during the week is, number one, with the scouting report, as much as possible, if you have an opportunity to use any online system, I would use an online system and eliminate the paper and pencil, or definitely paperless scouting reports. It also gives your players a chance to see a little bit on Sundays. The other one is, when we practice plan, as I mentioned, it's pretty organized and detailed, and it's all done on the weekend. What we do is we post the practice plan every day in the locker room, so the players can see what's going on and what equipment needs to be brought out and where they should be at any given time in practice. And then the last one is, we try and as much as possible stay on course that we won't condition our players during practice. During off season, we condition them hard. We build conditioning into the way that we tempo during practice. You know, there's sayings that, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. And Aristotle even said that excellence is not an act, but a habit. And so we try to do as much as possible, make things habit. Perfect practice is something that you want to create in your players by the way they practice, by running outstanding drills, setting up drills right, and having an up-tempo practice with your players. So some ideas that I can give you for for conducting just great practices throughout the week. Remember, players don't have bad practices, coaches do, and that's because of the way that we set it up. So number one is plan your practice out at the beginning of the week before you hit the field. Don't do it as you're going out on the field, and please make everything as detailed as you can and don't leave anything to chance. Every minute of our practice is scripted in 5-minute segments, and we will generally have anywhere from 22 to 27 segments in our practice. The other thing is we don't stretch during practice. Once practice starts, we're ripping and rolling. Players are responsible for stretching during early outs, and areas that we want stretched are their hamstrings and any other areas that would be important to them or need to be taken care of. Our practices are all up tempo. It's reps, 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 and we're going to coach off the film as much as possible. Coaches understand that we're going to stay on the clock. There's no more one more rep. When that clock's gone, we're moving on to the next segment if it calls for the next segment. And then as much as possible, we're going to coach off the film, and if we need to, we'll pull a player out of the drill, coach him up while somebody else goes in and gets rep, and then put him right back in. And then some things that we have for goals during practice, as much as possible on inside run, we want to strive for 3 plays per minute on inside run minimum, and during any 11 on 11 period, we want to strive for 2 plays per minute. So in a 20-minute period of team, we should be able to run 40 offensive plays. In a 10-minute period of inside run, we should have been able to rip off 30 inside, and that would be minimum. Of course, we'd like to strive for more. We want to create a pressure practice as much as possible, make practice so intense physically and mentally that the kids feel that they're faster in games and the game seems to slow down and the games are easier. And the other thing is we want to create competition as much as possible in all the drills that we set up. We want to practice harder, smarter, and with greater intensity than our opponents, and that's when you create the edge when you do those things. It's not that you're doing any drill that's outstanding or better than your opponents. We're assuming that all the great programs are doing that, but we want to take them to a level that's never been done before. We're demanding on all the players, not just the ones, as I mentioned. We're going to be demanding on our scout and our service players as well. We're going to emphasize and communicate what periods are review, what periods are thud, and what periods are live. Live, we're obviously going live. Sometimes it'll be live to the whistle, sometimes it'll be live to the ground. Thud, we are never going to the ground. And then review, we would never light players up. We also understand as a program that if we ever have an opportunity to light somebody up, we're not going to do that at practice. We're just going to make sure that we wall them off, use good technique, and allow them to be able to live to see another down. We're going to save those for game day. We're also going to emphasize what periods are top players versus top players, ones versus ones, and which players are service or scout team. And then lastly, the coach is responsible to set up the drills so that we can maximize the reps. I always say that the coaches are responsible for conducting their drills in a way so that players can get a great amount of reps in the periods that they have. Each day during our practice, we emphasize different things. So for instance, on Monday we have early outs. That would be our walkthroughs or our install periods if we were installing anything new. We do our inside run on Mondays. We will do on-air period, a little bit of 7-on-7. We'll work our play action boot and our quick pass. So Mondays are rundown days. On Tuesday we will do our early out, which is our fire alarm, which is our short yardage offense series, which is pretty unique, and we will do that on air. We'll work our blitz pickup, our blitz beaters, and our 3rd and long. So on Tuesday we're spending a little more time on the pass game. On Wednesday during our early out we work a few different series and tempos that we have, one of which is a 3-play rapid fire series that we do consecutively over and over and over, and work our bootleg as well on Wednesdays. Again, we'll work some inside run, we'll work some pass under pressure, we'll work our team offense, our mayday, and our shark ball. It's a very competitive day on Wednesday. On Thursday, it's our perfect practice day. We're going to work our game script, review our special plays, any gadgets that we have. We practice gadgets every day during practice, and I'll get into that. We'll review our fire alarm, which is our short yardage offense, and we'll review our game plan. And then during any special teams, players that aren't directly involved in our special teams, they'll be working with the offense. So we have offensive segments during special teams where players are either working individually or with a group. We don't have anybody standing around during those periods. The only players that are involved in the special teams are the players that are directly on them. All the other players are working with their units. Here's the first day of the week, one of our practice plans, and I'm going to show you all 4 days what we're doing. And The very first thing that should catch your eye is you can see that it's detailed. We have 5-minute periods, and that in this specific practice there were 26 periods in practice. We got on the field at 3:45 for early outs, and by 6:05 we were off the field. And during the early outs, it gives coaches a chance to work with players. The other thing that you'll notice is that it's pretty detailed in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we're working with. The yellow are some just things that are highlighted during the practice plan. And then the other thing that should catch your eye is you take a look at the beginning of practice. You'll notice there's no stretch or team warm-ups. The players are responsible for doing that on their own. And then lastly, at the end of this practice, there was absolutely no conditioning. And so the coaches and players know that it's on us to have a great tempo of practice, and conditioning is on us. Sometimes what I've done is I've made conditioning a punishment. So we would say that if you loaf at practice, and that means that just not moving at full speed during a drill or during a team segment, a coach would write down your position group or your name, and then that you or your position group would be responsible for a segment after practice of conditioning. Right away early in practice, you'll notice we're working some punt team, and if it's not detailed in terms of specifically other groups, what they should be doing, we mentioned that they don't stand around in practice. Coaches understand that if I'm a defensive back coach and there's nothing listed, I'm going to just work skills with my players that aren't involved in this segment of practice. So we start out with practice. We work some special teams drills right when practice starts. Before practice, we were working early outs. Quarterbacks and receivers were working on some things. And then once we hit practice, we did a little bit of an install, working on some of the new stuff that we had just put in. And then we did an 11-on-11 period, which is an eye-opener right away. We're working pass under pressure. You can see that it details that this is a thud period, so we're not lighting anybody up. We're certainly not getting to the quarterback. We were going to keep score during that period, which meant that at the end of the period, the loser was going to do push-ups. So this doesn't focus on our opponent. All this is looking at is what we need to do to get better. So this is us versus us. And then we've got a period of practice where we have in our individual, and then we go to group where we're doing some 7-on-7, and then we're going to work our inside run, and then we're working our 2-point plays. Again, we insert some special teams during practice. There's nothing detailed there, so the offensive line would be, as an example, with their coach, maybe getting on the sled. Receivers and quarterbacks that aren't in it would be working some pass game things that we're going to work for that week. And then we're going to work our varsity offense. While we're working our varsity offense, our JVs are at the other end of the field, and they're working defense. So our defensive team would service us during Team O. And on this day, we're working our 2nd and 8 and 3rd and whatever, which means that on the very first down, it's 2nd and 8, and then if we get 5 yards, for example, that would be 3rd and 3. So this is really a rundown emphasis. And then from there, we go back to special teams again. Now you can see during special teams, our varsity offense is working on bear, flag, and gadgets. These are all different things that we would do during the course of a game. There's sequence and there's special plays as well. The JV offense is just working on some base quick game. Most of our defensive players are involved, and the ones that aren't would work with a position coach. And then we're going to work our varsity defense to finish up practice on the same thing, which are our rundowns. This is our Tuesday's practice, where you can see, again, it's very similar. We're going to have 26 periods during practice. One of the things that'll catch your eye is that during our rundowns of team offense, we're going to incorporate our conditioning into the team. So what we're going to do is every 5 minutes, we're going to do a little bit of running, some wind sprints real quick, get them tired. And we want to be able to play well when we're tired and be able to think, and that's when your mind goes, so you want to practice those things during the course of the week. We do some other things during practice where you can see we're going to work us versus us and not worry so much about who we're playing. We're working a half-line zone option drill, which is really our offense versus our defense. And then again, we've got some individual panned in, but to start practice off after we do special teams, we're doing ones-on-ones. And so for us, that's one-on-ones, inside linebackers versus running backs, outside linebackers versus D-line, outside linebackers and D-line versus O-line, and DBs versus wide receivers. So it's a competitive drill right at the beginning of practice to get the juices going. Here's our Wednesday practice, and you can see it follows along the course of the week in terms of what we should be working on. This practice is 24 periods. There's a little bit of something that we would consider conditioning like towards the end. For our offense, that's perfect plays. So the first group's going to start off at the 40, and they're going to run 4 consecutive plays, getting 10 yards each play. Having great tempo, they're going to score, get a break in the end zone. Next group's going to go on the field as they're scoring. We're going to do that with 3 different groups. At the same time, our defense is working their pursuits and their cutbacks on the 20-yard line, going towards the clock on the other end of the field. You can see that practice starts off again. Here's some early outs, and right after early outs, we're going pass under pressure. It's competitive. It's ones versus ones. Then we jump to some special teams, go back into individual, and then we do a competitive drill called Bull in the Ring, which is an offensive versus a defensive player, and you're just trying to drive them in the opposite direction, and we're competing, so the winner, we're going to keep score, and the loser's going to do push-ups. From there, we go to inside run, and then we have our team periods to finish practice off. But we take our special teams and we put it throughout practice at different points. We don't do all our special teams at the front end or the back end. We try to show them that just like in a football game, you're going to have offense or defense, but there's going to be some transitions during special teams and you're going to need to get set up. So right when we finish Team O, when the horn goes for period 18, we're going to yell off kickoff team. We expect those players to get on the field right away. Our last physical practice of the week is on Thursday. We go at 6 a.m. You can see there's 14 periods, and each period's actually 14 minutes. So we start out at 6 a.m. with early outs. 6:08 our official practice starts, and we're off the field by 7:04. So the actual practice part, if you eliminate the early outs, is less than an hour. And then we incorporate all phases of the game: special team, team offense, where we're working our opening script. We're working special teams again. We're transitioning to defense end of the game. How do you play during the end of the game? Do you have a plan for the way that you're gonna play Team D when you're up? And then we go transition back to kickoff, special teams again, and then we work a series of offense, and it tells or lists how many reps we want for each thing. So if you take a look, punt team to start, we want 4 plays minimum. We're going to run our shield, our galaxy, and then 2 tight. So 4 plays right there. Right from there, we're going to Team D versus their top offensive plays and formations, and we want a minimum of 10 plays in 8 minutes. And you know, on Thursday, that's a really, I guess, not real slow for us, but the tempo's a lot slower than it was earlier in the week. We want to make sure we're working everything to perfection. We finish our practice off with our kicking game, field goal PAT, and field goal PAT defend. We get a break, get them off to class, and we don't see them till after school at the lower level game. We have a call sheet that we use during our game, and this is the top portion of the call sheet where, you know, we don't have to call things emotionally and wonder, you know, what are we working on? This is actually seems like a lot, but it's not a lot of different things. Well, on the call sheet on the side here, I have a coach that on his sheet he keeps track of timeouts, and then I have coaches that keep track of how many. It's a hit chart, how many times we're running each play. So at the top, here's our run pass menu. Here's our zones, our perimeter runs, our gaps, and our counters. And when we used to use a wrist coach, it would have the corresponding numbers and colors in these as well. And then here's a unbalanced sequence that we had, or an unbalanced formation that we had. And here's a 3-play sequence that we had. It lists our gadgets and what we're doing in our short yardage offense and then in our openers. And we will refer to this when our offense is off the field and our defense is on the field. And then in the middle of that page, here are all of our passing game stuff. Here's our quick concepts, play action, our intermediates, our verticals, things that we feel that are going to give us a shot or taking a chunk, our heavy, which is our personnel package using 1 and 2 tight end, things that we're working out of compressed formations, our slow screens and our quick screens, and that's in the middle of the page. And again, we would have our corresponding numbers and colors if we were using a wrist coach, and we have a coach that keeps track of this as if it were a hit chart. Then at the bottom of the page, it lists our empty offense, our clock offense. Our clock offense is when we're up, what do we want to be running, staying in bounds, taking time off the clock, and then if we're down and we need to go into a hurry-up offense, what we are doing, we're always up tempo, but when we go into our actual Mayday offense, where we need to be scoring points, we're going to cut down on our whole offense, and these are the things that we're going to be looking at. Our opening script is somewhat unique in it's our script for normal, down, and distance. And all we need to do is what number player are we on and what hash. So if we take the field and we're on our first play and we're in the middle of the field, right here would be the play that we're calling. And then if we get into, let's just say, here's our first down, second down, and now we're on a 3rd and 10 on our first series. 3rd and 10, we're going to get off the chart, and we're not going to use that script. As I mentioned, it's normal, down, and distance. So if we get 3rd and longs or 4th and short, we'll go off the script, get the first, you do what you need to do to get the first down, and then go back on the script till we're done. By the time we're done the script, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we're trying to accomplish and what should work during the game, and then any reminders that we would have. This is on the front portion of our call sheet. Then on the back portion of our call sheet, it's divided up as well. It's a little bit different. On the back, it's a down and distance menu at the top. So if we get 3rd and 11, here's the runs and here's the passes. If we get 3rd and 1 to 3, here's the one run that we're going to do, which is part of our fire alarm series, and then here's the passes that we would do. Anytime we're on the goal line, our runs and passes, when we're backed up, and then we're in the red zone. What we feel happens is when we utilize this and it's practiced during the course of the week and memorized to a good extent, it takes the emotion out of play calling. And then at the bottom of that page, just answers to the different coverages that we're going to see. I have a coach that's responsible for the Go for 2 chart. We talk about our 2-point plays. These are things that have been practiced during the course of the week so that we don't have to pull stuff out. And then again, some reminders as to who our captains are for that game, and then things that we would want to discuss with the refs. We're a no-huddle offense, and there's a lot of different ways to call your no-huddle. We feel that it's really important in what we're doing to be simple in our communication. We can't afford for players to get mixed up and think that we had meant something else when we actually try to communicate another concept. But we want to be as complex as we can as a staff in our planning and our details. And so that's on us to be very detail-oriented, but very, very simple in the way that we communicate to our players. There's various ways that you can use terminology in the no-huddle and be able to communicate your concept and play. So one idea is to use names for plays and concepts, and that would be, as an example, if you wanted to run inside zone to the right, you could call it Japan, and inside zone to the left you can call Tokyo. So that you can use that. You can use numbers for your plays and concepts. So inside zone could be 10 if you were going to the right and 11 to the left. You can have directional names. So you could have a name that designates to the right and a name that designates to the left. So an example of a directional name would be north and south. Anything designated north would be to the right, anything designated south would be to the left. And then I would suggest allow your players to have input so that they ensure that they're taking ownership in your no-huddle terminology. Second thing with the no-huddle is, how are you going to get your plays in? How are you going to communicate your plays to get them in? Are you going to be verbal, and that would actually be yelling something in? Are you going to use hand signals? Are you going to use a wrist coach? Are you going to use a number board on the sidelines, which is a series of numbers that your players understand, and with those numbers are corresponding plays that they've memorized? Are you going to use a signboard that more teams are doing, similar to University of Oregon? Or are you going to use a sugar huddle where you're going to signal things in and they're going to break from the huddle really quick at the line of scrimmage? We found that after experimenting and doing things differently and using the wrist coach, that the fastest way for us to signal things in is just by using hand signals. We used to use a body clock where we would designate numbers and they would look at their wrist coach, but I found that initially thinking that it was pretty fast, they would have to get the signal, look at the wrist coach, and now be able to play. And now all they have to do is see our hand signals, which would designate a concept that we're running, and then just be able to go and do the play. This is an example of using a wrist coach, and this is a blown up wrist coach. You can see that there's multiple columns and that there's also numbers for the rows. So we have our first column, column A, and then we have 10 different rows of plays. And then we have another column B and 10 different rows of plays. And some of the plays are more popular, so we have them in a few different spots. So an example of how to call this would be you would signal in the number 11 and they would go straight to that column and see that it's 83. If you signaled in a 6 and a 3 on your body clock using hand signals, they would take a look and see that this play was called 80 short at the time. That was one way to do it. The other one is to use corresponding colors and numbers, and this would be using it the same way, just a variety of different ways to call it so that people weren't able to steal your signals. So if you signaled in blue 1, now when we signal in the color blue, we go to the second number. The first number is dead. So we go blue 1, it would be this play here. If we went green 3, they would go to this column where the green is and take a look at the third row and do it that way. Now we also have letters for the columns. So this would be A, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Denver, Edmonton, Frankfurt. And so we would have different ways to signal in the city name, and again, now we would go to the number. So Boston 4 would be this play. So that gives you an idea of how some people are using the wrist coaches and using them in a variety of different ways, again, so people can't steal your signals. This has 60 spots on it for plays. We don't have 60 plays in our offense, so some of these are here multiple times. The third thing associated with the no huddle is your tempo of your no huddle. Are you regular? Are you mayday? Are you freeze check? Do you run a sequence, or do you have a clock offense? And all of these are different tempos that we will incorporate in our offense. So for us, our regular tempo is our up-tempo offense. We're already operating at a high speed. We're stressing to our players that we are setting a goal of having 70 offensive plays per game, which is a lot at the high school level with 12-minute quarters. That's a pretty good football game if we've got off 70 plays. The second one is our mayday, and our players understand that mayday is NASCAR tempo, and sometimes we've even called it NASCAR or race car, where we've cut down on our plays. Our players understand that when we're operating at that tempo, we're behind. They understand that when the clock stops and when the clock keeps running. Our freeze check is when we give the players a play, but we also freeze the defense, and then we just check to see if we want to continue with that play or check into something else. Our sequence is a series of plays that are run in continuous fashion at rapid fire pace, and there'll be anywhere from 3 to 5 plays in a row that will continue running until we freeze the defense and go off of that and go back to our normal offense. And then lastly is our clock offense, which is slowing things down, staying in bounds. Again, understanding that we're up, we want to eat the clock as much as possible and keep the ball out of our opponent's hands. Thanks a lot for watching this DVD. Hopefully I can help you and your program out in preparation and planning for Friday night success. If there's anything I can do in any way, please don't hesitate to email me at sharksfootball1@hotmail.com. I always love exchanging ideas. Thanks a lot.